are there any tips or things that you can share about how to storytell live?
I've learned a lot over the past 2 years of doing it. As new streamers, you might have aspirations of you want this to be great. Of course you want it to be great. But I think now we take it more as I'm very much focused on just trying to have a good time. I want my players to have a great time, most of all.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Geek Peek. My name is Oren, and today I'm interviewing Wed Ford from Tales of Terramir. Aside from being the DM for Tales of Terramir, Wes is also the video editor, the producer, and the social media person. This episode is packed with a lot of inspiration about how to be the person everyone in your team is kind of dependent on to make the thing work, which is essentially what Wes is for Tales of Terramir. Wes is doing everything. I am very excited for you to listen to this episode because this is where we all started. This is where you want to start. Wes doesn't have a huge audience, but still, there is a Tales of Terramir episode every week. I dove with Wes about world building and storytelling and DMing. So I think you're really going to love this one. So without further ado, enjoy the interview.
Wed Ford from Tales of Terramir, welcome to the channel.
Thank you so much for having me, Oren. I appreciate it.
You have an amazing channel. You created a story years in the making and in a homebrew world. And I have a lot of questions to ask you. We will dive into world building, storytelling, DMing, a lot of interesting topics. And I want to begin with you. And tell us a little bit about Wes before D&D and before Tales of Terramir.
Wow. So, first of all, I've always been into storytelling. It's just a part of who I am. As a young kid, I was the kid that would stay home, stay inside, and read books. I would just read endlessly. And when I got to about middle school is when I actually started playing D&D. I got introduced to it from my cousin and fell in love with it immediately. Just creating my own stories, creating my own fantasies. And, as a book lover, I always was into that. And then I continued doing creative things through most of my life. I was really into theater and drama in high school. And then through that, I actually got really into filmmaking. And I went to film school at Full Sail University, got my Bachelor's of Science degree in film, and got really into that aspect of storytelling. And now I'm a professional video editor. So it sort of has all transitioned and just been one seamless track in a way to where I've always loved telling stories. I love putting together stories. You do that as an editor, putting clips together. And through all that time, I've also been a DM. I've been a dungeon master, running my own games for all these years. And that's a little bit about me, I suppose.
Amazing. There's a lot to dive into.
Yeah.
I think the first question that is interesting to me after telling a little bit about yourself is what is your favorite book?
Oh, wow. I didn't expect that one. Oh, geez. What's my favorite book?
Putting you on the spot.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever really considered that. I was always a really big fan of the Harry Potter books. I was always a big fan of the Lord of the Rings books. Big fan of Lord of the Rings. I don't think I have a single favorite book, but I've always tended to go towards anything fantasy related, fantasy, adventure. Those are always my favorite kind of books.
So fantasy is the genre.
So that's my favorite. I've read all kinds of genres. I've read action. I've read drama. Same for movies. I obviously love movies. I'm into film. But where my own stories come from are from usually a fantasy setting. I enjoy that aspect.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are there any, like, what are the fantasy books you're reading recently?
So I'm actually not reading a fantasy novel. It's actually a horror book. I'm reading House of Leaves currently, which is sort of a horror, I suppose. It's a very interesting book. It has a very interesting format. I heard about it way back in like high school, and I'm just now sort of getting to it. Yeah. But it's about it's about a house that seems to have endless passages. It's larger on the inside than it is on the outside. And so I just started it, so I'm pretty new, and I know there's actually like a cult following behind the whole book. But I've been into that, and I'm slowly exploring that. That's all about.
Aside from being a book lover, you also mentioned playing D&D very early on, like in middle school. What was that like?
Oh, it's fantastic. You know, like I said, my cousin introduced it to me, and I ended up playing with a much older group of people. I was, when I started, I was 13, 14, maybe less than. No. Middle school would be less than, maybe 12, 13. And I was playing with like 20-year-olds. And, but I somehow just like fell in love with it, and just seeing them interact as friends and as a party, I got that dynamic right away, just organically. And then after that experience, I wanted to share it with my own friends. You know, like, look at this cool thing I discovered. You can tell your own stories, you can make your own characters. And I started creating my own world and introduced my friends to it. And it slowly grew from there. You know, we've had many people come in and out. And in some ways, Terramir is actually evolved from that originally. I've always sort of maintained the same world. It's evolved over many, many years. You know, you get older and you realize, you know, you get more mature and you realize some parts of your world might not be good, you know, and then you're like, okay, that needs to change. And so it evolves over time. But even from middle school, even Terramir is a manifestation of even those earliest games that I had.
Wow. I resonate with that a lot. I recently started writing a fantasy novel. And
I saw that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So that world that I'm writing is, like you said, it's a world that has been in my mind for many, many years. It's evolved through many iterations from a world that I thought about when I was in not high school, even middle school. So that's
cool. I love that.
That's very, very cool. That's like how stories carry with us into who we are today and evolved. And
totally.
So, okay. You also mentioned you were in theater. Is there a connection between your love or your attraction to theater and like the storytelling of it? Like, did you want to kind of live the characters?
Oh yeah, 100%. You know, with theater, you're usually taking obviously like a script of a play, and you're taking a character and you try to embody them, and you make the character your own. And so absolutely there's a tie. D&D, there's actually a lot of stuff online how like theater kids are like attracted to tabletop role-playing games because of that aspect. Creating characters and creating drama and living in the moment. And, you know, our show does have that. You know, it has a little bit of acting. It's all improv. No scripts. It's just a very loose guideline of where we're kind of going. But yeah, I think theater experience helps a lot with being on the spot and knowing where the story might be going and where you might want to lead that story. Yeah.
Okay. That's amazing. In terms of like filmmaking, is that also inspired by D&D, or is that like a sort of a thing that you love because you love it? For example, for me, if I would compare, like I love fantasy, I love Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy books and video games, but I also love the aspect of software engineering because that's what I do, and I'm
You're a
good
software
at
engineer.
it.
That's
Yes,
great.
I am a software engineer.
That's awesome.
So is that like for you, filmmaking is the same, or filmmaking also comes from that place of storytelling and D&D and all that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It all ties in. Filmmaking is all about storytelling, and I've always been into the writing aspect. Obviously, like I said, I'm an editor, so it's about tying a story together, and and I do it every day. I'm throwing a bunch of clips and some audio and like, okay, make this into something. And so, but I find that very satisfying. I love my job because every single day I get to be creative, and I am given materials, and then I have to make a story out of it and try and make that in a compelling and entertaining way. So not only am I doing that every single day with my job, I also tried to do that in my own, for editing, you're doing it for a client. For, for D&D, for Tales of Terramir, I'm trying to do it for myself and my friends. So that's the difference. But yeah, filmmaking is also part of that. I got really into that because it was about writing and trying to create a story, and not only it's about entertainment, but it's also about just creating a great narrative. And that's the sweet stuff. That's the really good stuff that I love.
Using that segue from filmmaking and mentioning Tales of Terramir, take us through that pivotal moment where you kind of have that spark, have that idea that from there, Tales of Terramir will be born.
Like I said, I've been playing D&D continuously since I was a young kid. And it sort of came about, we had we have several actual home games outside of our Tales of Terramir game. And one of our campaigns ended. And I was talking to my friends Rob and Mike, who helped me launch the channel. And we're like, we should try doing an actual play. And just for fun, let's see where it goes. We enjoy doing D&D. Let's try recording it and making something of value out of it. So that's where it spawned from. And I was like, hey guys, I got a world we can play in. And it was Terramir, which neither one had played in. And I hadn't actually touched Terramir since high school. It had been that long. I had gone through college and everything and hadn't touched the world all that time, even though I was playing D&D consistently. And I was like, I kind of want to take this homebrew world and wipe the dust off of it and clean it up and see what we can do with it. And they were all in on it. And so I set about for actually over like a year. I took the world and I was just like writing nonstop of refreshing it, making new maps, creating just updated version of the world. And that went on for about a year. And then we were finally set on what we wanted to do, got our players, and then we launched the channel. And it's been 2 years that we've been playing consistently. The campaign is still going strong. We just finished Arc 1, we call it, sort of like the big first part 1 of what I think might be 3 parts. And yeah, I think we're having a great time still, and the channel is getting some traction, I think. But we're not even doing it for that. We're really just doing it for fun. We really just want to make a great story for ourselves, and if people want to participate in it, that's awesome. And I don't know where I was going with that, but that's sort of where we're at
fine.
now.
Okay. Okay, so you did mention the size of the audience, And I want to briefly touch on that because there's a nugget of wisdom there that I want you to share with creators. And currently, you have been creating content for about or over 2 years. You've been creating all of these episodes. Each of them is a labor of love, lots of time behind the scenes and on stream. But for YouTube, for example, you have about, I don't know, less than 100 subscribers. Talk me through what it feels like to kind of like maybe have that desire to grow the community, but still kind of combating with yourself about making it about the story and not about the audience or the fame or whatever comes, if it comes much later. Like, how do you keep that balance and consistency? How do you keep going?
Yeah. The main thing for me is, and I end up kind of being the face of Tales of Terramir a little bit because I run most of the social media and I am the DM. So it's just sort of natural because I know what's going on. But we are very focused on creating just a really great story. We want to create a fantastic story that has many layers of depth. The characters are very well thought out, and that's all on the players. You know, that's on Mike, Hannah, Justin. Those are our main players right now, and Charlie, who's joined in recently. They have all created very rich characters. I've worked very hard to create a world for those characters to adapt in, and that has always been our focus, trying to tie in those loose ends that might fray, but it's an actual play story. There's not and that's sort of the fun of it too, is we don't know exactly where it's going. I have some ideas of where I might go, because I have to be on top of that as the dungeon master. But we started out with this campaign having no idea where it was going to go. I had the world built and threw the players into the sandbox and said, okay, let's go. Let's see what happens. And it slowly has developed, strong themes. And the players are so good at inhabiting those characters that they've created that it's easy for me in some ways to pull from that and create strands of storylines that can be followed. And so yeah, that has always been our focus. If people enjoy it, we're happy. We're happy that you can come along and follow along this story with us because we don't know where it's going either. And that's just the greatest joy for me. Creating a story, not knowing where it's going, and having my players also explore the world that I have had in my head for so long too, is one of the best parts. And so we'll see where it goes. Like I said, I have some outline of where I think it's going to end. And as the story has gone along, especially after we've end arc 1, there's sort of a setup for where things might be going. And I think I'm very excited about where it's going to go. I think it's going to go in very exciting directions. And I can't wait to see what both the players and the audience finds out of that.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Okay, so now I do want to kind of dive into aspects of Terramir, world building, content creation, around your world, character creation. Let's begin with world building. If you had to kind of give advice to your former self about building Terramir, now that you are experienced and you're no longer a child, how would you kind of outline or design a world from scratch?
Oh, it's a great question. I would say from about 20 years of doing D&D, and I've done other TTRPGs as well, but speaking largely of I guess, tabletop role-playing games, if you're trying to create a world, start small. Start very small. I would start with just a village and maybe just the overarching basics of the world. How does magic work? Are there gods? But don't get lost in the weeds, start very small and then expand outward. I sort of had the, I guess I had the luck or the strange opportunity of having a world almost already built from my end before I started Tales of Terramir. Like I said, it had evolved over many, many years. So I had that starting out. But even with that, when I went into doing this campaign, I knew the broad strokes of the entire world, but I did redesign a lot of parts of the world. And, when we started out, not knowing where it was going to go, I had a new town built, that wasn't built before. And well, let's start here. And just building out, okay, who's in charge of the town, and maybe just a couple shops. Let's see what happens. And they start exploring. I had one little story about, elven villagers were being kidnapped, and they started to go down that road. Why are these people being kidnapped? What's going on? Why are the the law enforcement not going after this? And that it slowly evolves. It's a collaborative storytelling piece of art, really. And so they start to explore down a storyline, and then after the session, I'm like, okay, writing notes, and where's this going to go? Well, if they go down this way, then I'll write that. But you don't want to get too ahead of yourself, because then you might want to start railroading them or trying to get them down a certain path. Like, well, you guys had said that you wanted to explore that, so I made that for you, but maybe they don't want to do that, And so it is a little bit of taking and giving as well. It's very, very nuanced too, and I find the fun in that as well. So yeah, I guess I went on a long tangent there, but my advice would be, if you're starting out to create your own world, just start small. Start with just a village and see where it goes.
Okay, I have a fun question for you.
Yeah.
Is there any part of Terramir, present day Terramir, that you created specifically for your characters, and they didn't discover it, or like they weren't interested in it?
Yes, I did. There was. I try, and that's why I'm always writing too, even when we're not, I'm thinking about the world every day. I really am. So I'm constantly thinking about, well, if they go down that way, I should probably have something in place there. Or if they don't go that way, I don't want to build it too much. And there is one example of, I presented a fork in the road of paths for them. They could go this way, they could go that way. For a while, they were wanting to go down a certain path. And I started developing that path. And, it got to a certain fork in the road, and they're like, no, actually, we're going to go that way. We're going to go the other way. And I'm like, I developed all that for nothing. But it happens, I don't get too upset. I tried not to force them down a certain way. But sometimes they do need direction. Sometimes the players I really don't know where we should go. And that's when sometimes NPCs are great for that. And I try to sometimes lead them if they need direction, with little clues and hints of maybe go this way, but never forceful. So yeah, I did develop an entire, it was the Wed Ford garrison, and it was a fortress of soldiers that they were possibly going to go into disguised as knights. and infiltrate it, but they decided not to go that way. So it happens.
I mean, it's still there, I presume.
It's still there. It's still there.
Yeah.
And that's the way I take it too. Is I want the world to be continuing to expand, and if there's more campaigns that take place in it, hey, there it is. It's built.
Before we kind of talk about character creation and how you approach it with your players as a DM, I do want to ask you, because I'm very curious about it, how do you organize the details about your world building?
How do I organize the details?
Like, what do you use software, or how do you keep all the information?
I definitely don't do it in the most proficient way. There are people there's great websites out there that use world building techniques and things like that, which I've looked into, but I honestly keep everything in just Google Documents. I just have a bunch of Google Documents, and I kind of organize it that way, and I just kind of write it out, and I'm like, okay, this is my document for everything in the world, and this is my document for everything that's going on in the campaign that I'm going to run during the show. And then I have other random things too, random post-it notes, digital post-it notes, and I'm like, I have an idea, I'll type that into my phone, save it, and come back to it later or something. But I know there are more proficient ways to organize a world, but I'm kind of old school in the way that I just write it all down in a big document and make sure it's backed up.
You say Google Docs, and you make it seem like that's not a good way, but I do want to share that I still use these sometimes.
Hey, there you go. Sometimes just gotta write it down. I've got this. I have a little notebook of things that I sometimes use. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like writing, for me at least, writing things down in a physical paper with a physical pen sometimes just works better. I will kind of have that in a digital document later on. But for example, during an interview, I feel this is much easier for me if I have things that I want to touch on that you said. So
is that how you started your novel? Is just writing and then postcards and things like that? Is that how you're doing your novel?
So for me, that's actually a lot more messier. I had notebooks, and I was writing on those notebooks. I still have them over there, but that's fine. I don't want to ruin my setup. So I had this notebooks with how do you call those?
Spiral notebooks.
Spiral
notepads.
Yes. Spiral notebooks. So I had lots of those, and I would jot down things in them. While I was in high school, I was me and my best friend. We would use our breaks between classes to go out into the school's park and tell stories.
That's amazing.
It was kind of like playing D&D without knowing that we play D&D.
Yeah,
we didn't really know that was what
that
we
you
were
could
doing.
manifest that in another way. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so we kind of told those stories, and I loved them so much that I wrote them down.
Great.
And that's kind of how it all began. But then afterwards, I put some notes in Evernote, and then some notes in Notion, and that's it's all becomes such a mess. But now I'm just using Craft, and that's what I'm gonna use. I'm actually using two things. I'm using Craft for world building information, and I'm using Ulysses, which is the Mac app, Mac, iPhone. It's cross not cross-platform because it's only Apple, but it is like syncing over all of the devices, and
fantastic.
It's really good for Markdown. So you just write. It's like it has like this focus mode. You just write the story, and
I'm gonna have to look into this. That's great.
Yeah, and you can export from Craft to Ulysses, so it's really, really cool.
Love it.
Those are the two things I use. We kind of like told those stories, and then I jotted them down, and now it has come to this, like, I need to get it off my head into all of those notes and hopefully the story.
Totally understand. I'm constantly just like, if I have an idea festering in my head, I have to get it down, because I also find myself very forgetful too, and so I'm afraid I'll forget something. So if I have an idea for the story, even if it's just a character moment or just one small interaction, like, oh, got to write that down. And then there are times where, before I'm writing for a session, if I have like notes sprawled out, I'm like, okay, let's gather all those together. And I try and keep my main campaign document very organized. So if I have many different notes and everything, I try and at least every once in a while bring them together. I'm like, okay, let's put them all down in a nice format. So, but Ulysses sounds great for that. I have to look into that.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. I love it. Not sponsored.
Right.
But I really like it. Okay, so let's move on to talk about character creation. How do you, as a DM, approach like getting the idea from a player about a character they want to introduce to the world, and make sure that it is, for lack of a better word, fitting inside your world?
Sure. So definitely there's a lot of communication that has to happen before someone joins in any of my games. Really, I like to have, I like to get to know the character. And I prefer they write a backstory, and I'll take that and write my own notes, and then usually just reading their story, I have little ideas. I love when players write a backstory and they leave open things, little ties of, there was a stranger, I didn't know who they were. And so I love to take that and drop it in somewhere and go, well, this person was actually this person, and develop that. So I love taking that's where my editing comes from too, taking those little loose ends and make it into a nice story, cohesive story. So yeah, any new player and a new character, want to try to tie them in, and I want their ideas to be their own too. I don't want to be too restricting. If they want to play a character a certain way, if they want to make a character that's a certain build or a certain style of play, I try to take that and build upon it and ground it in a way like, and feed them ideas. Well, maybe let's say they're a cleric and they're like, I want to play a cleric this way. Okay, well, here's some options for you that maybe you can pull from, and maybe you worship this god for this reason, or etc. So that's sort of my process, bringing in a new character, a new player.
Is there a way you kind of resolve storytelling conflicts? Like, for example, if one of the players decide to introduce a character that is in conflict with the rules of your world, like how do you approach that?
I will often twist the rules for them if needed.
That's awesome.
If it's in conflict with something, let's take that, and now obviously I'll show them we don't typically do it that way, or this is usually how someone like that would handle this situation. But if you want to take in that direction, okay, because this is a collaborative storytelling narrative. I'm not here to present just a novel, or this is my script that I want you to follow. That's not what D&D is. That's not what tabletop role playing is. They're a part of the story just as much as I am. So yeah, if they want to have something that's different, that's exciting. And how can we bend the rules? And maybe they're the first one to have this sort of magic or have this sort of ability, and no one understands why they're able to do it this way. Make that part of the story. Make that part of the fun. So that's how I approach it.
Okay, that's a really good way to approach conflicts. Like, it would be so nitpicky if you were like, you can't do that. That
right.
It also discourages the player in what they wanted to do.
It does, and it also comes down to fun, right? If they're having fun and if they're excited about an idea, and it, unless it's like a very hard restriction, like I don't know, like I don't even have an example. I usually just twist it in some way. So I don't know.
Your player, like my player, is a god.
Right. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, that can't quite be how this works. You need to ground it a little bit. But maybe they're the child of a god or something, and they're trying to reach godhood. Let's explore that, But yeah, it all comes down to fun and collaborative storytelling.
Okay. In terms of like collaborative storytelling and D&D and other TTRPGs in general, what are your inspirations in terms of like what kind of D&D or TTRPG do you watch and enjoy?
Do you want me to list examples of ones that I watch?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. I watch the big ones. I'm very busy lately, so I'm way behind on everything. But I watch. I was a big fan of Critical Role for a very long time. I'm way behind currently, but love them. Love Dimension 20. What they do is fantastic, and I really want to watch more. And those are the main ones. And I also what's another good one? Not Another D&D podcast is good. Those are just some good creators. And the thing is too, there's so many out there that it's not only for time, it's hard to focus. And I understand if even for our show, there's so much out there. But I also think that's really awesome because we're creating this sort of backlog of all these amazing stories, and hopefully one or two people can find ours to be inspiring and maybe make their own show or their own campaigns or even offline. So it's a great community too. The TTRPG community is fantastic online, and if you're a fan of TTRPGs, D&D, storytelling in general, such a great community online, even just to speak to them and share ideas. It's fantastic.
I found that aside from Critical Role, which we will touch in a second, I found that Dimension 20 and NetPod 2, even though NetPod is also beginning to suffer from the same problem that Critical Role suffers, but at least from my experience with Dimension 20, I noticed that the community of Dimension 20 will magically have the time to also watch whatever people on the show participated in elsewhere. Like if you have, for example, Abria Iyengar, and she is on a one-shot or a short campaign elsewhere, people will watch that too. Or Brennan Lee Mulligan, he is on other things. He was in Downfall now, in Critical Role. This is also something that people who usually don't watch Critical Role will still watch just for Brennan. So I think in terms of like time, we think about it in a very binary way. Like you either have time or don't. But in reality, people find the time to watch the things that they love.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah. So, but in terms of like, for example, Critical Role and NatPod, you mentioned you were behind. Can I ask you, how behind are you in Critical Role specifically?
For Critical Role, I've been a much thorough follower of them, probably the most. I actually started watching them into Campaign 1, and I've gone back and I've watched most of Campaign 1, but I was a very consistent watcher of Campaign 2, and I was a very consistent watcher of Campaign 3 until about halfway through. I still try to keep up with it here and there, but being a parent, being a husband, also making my own show and content, I do find it hard to find extra time. And I'm also trying to keep up with movies and shows, and it's all a lot. So, but yeah, so not that behind on Critical Role. For Dimension 20, I've only watched, I've mainly watched just the first season and little
Fantasy
bits
High.
here and there. Fantasy High. Yeah. Fantasy High, which is phenomenal. Love it. And I'm going to be a big fan of Brennan Lee Mulligan. So I do try and catch little things of him here and there too. If he's on a new appearance, I can't remember the name of, there's like that improv show. It's like a game show that he's at.
Make Some Noise.
Does it Make Some Noise? That sounds familiar.
Make Some Noise, Game Changer. These are shows on Dropout.
Yes, I think I've watched some of those, and I've looked him up in other things too. He's fantastic, and I love when they kind of get onto Critical Role. I try and watch those as well, so I understand that aspect. Yeah.
Okay. So for Critical Role, I was a late bloomer in terms of like watching the show. And I started watching Campaign 1 because I have this thing that I don't want to read recaps. If I
good to know.
Like if I get into a show, I will watch it from the beginning. I have this in video games too. Like I started playing. I discovered Mass Effect, which is, if you don't know, is a science fiction game.
I love Mass Effect. I'm a very big fan of Mass Effect.
Mass Effect is fantastic. And I discovered it in
fantastic.
Mass Effect 2. And I started playing it in Mass Effect 2. And then I was like, wait, there's a whole game that I didn't play. And now people tell me that I can import my save. I
know. It's the best part. It's the best part.
I gotta stop playing this now. Go play the full Mass Effect 1 game, get the save, now import. Yes.
Yeah.
And it was such an amazing experience because I felt I had a lot more context after importing the save from Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 2, and the same with Mass Effect 3. So, like, I couldn't just drop into Mass Effect 2 and feel, like, honestly, like, enjoying the game fully. So that's my way of illustrating. I can't just drop into Campaign 3 or Campaign whenever
it's a sequel,
comes.
Right? Yeah. There's context to all that stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
So I'm like, I just can't. I have to watch it. I don't want to read recaps. And yeah, the same, by the way, for Brennan Lee Mulligan and Abria Iyengar, Lou Wilson, and Erica Ishii's podcast called Worlds Beyond Number. I am on episode 16. I listened to it. I listened to it so slowly. It has 32 episodes now. I listened to it so slowly because I also publish a blog post about every episode. And then I'm like, okay, I don't have time. but whenever I do have time, okay, so I need to listen actively because I'm writing headlines, and and then like
Yeah.
okay, so from there and now I can actually, they also on Patreon, they also publish a PDF, which is a transcript of the entire podcast. And I'm like, no, I won't read that. I need to listen to
it. You want to experience
exactly.
it. You want to live through it. Hey, I get that totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my little tangent about not going into recaps.
We can't go in halfway. We got to start at the top.
Exactly. I can't any other way. So to tie like the whole thing, Critical Role and NADPOD also have this this problem. They've become so big.
Yes.
And now NADPOD also, like, I think it is on campaign 3 as well. I'm not sure. I do still have like the podcast app downloading automatically all the episodes to my phone whenever they come out. But yeah, but if I need to keep up with it, I will keep up with it from, I think, episode 16 of 16 or 17, or maybe not sure where I stopped, but I am still at campaign 1, and I will not skip.
Refuse.
So we talked about all, like, in terms of like world building, storytelling, character creation as well. Is there like anything you experienced during filming of the show, like on stream, you're doing it live? What are some kind of lessons that you learn, like storytelling in the moment? Like, are there any like, did you have any moments that you were like, okay, I need to take a pause for a minute to check something and then go back? Like, is there, like, do you kind of bend the rules, or are there any tips or things that you can share about how to storytell live?
I've learned a lot over the past 2 years of doing it. I think that you can even go in and watch us, and though we're excited in the very beginning, we were also very new to streaming games. We have never done it before. None of us had ever done it before. And so we took it maybe a little too seriously. You know, I think we were maybe a little tense and not sure where to go. And I think as the years have progressed, we sort of we've loosened way up, and we're just having more fun. And not that we didn't have fun before, we had a blast. We've always had a blast. But as new streamers, you might have aspirations of, you want this to be great. Of course you want it to be great. And we still do. But I think now we take it more as, as the punches come. There are things that happen all the time when you live play. There are malfunctions. There are technical difficulties. And I think, at least speaking for myself personally, I've taken it much more in stride of, if something happens, okay, let's just try and spin that and come back and let's keep going. And I'm very much focused on just trying to have a good time. I want my players to have a great time, most of all. And of course, there have been curveballs that come at me. There are things where I've had interactions or encounters that I had planned. And even beforehand, I'm like looking through my notes. I'm like, okay, got this. And then it comes into fruition and I'm like, oh, I forgot something. Dang it. And I'm afterwards, I'm like, I can't believe I forgot that. And then you realize maybe that little detail wasn't that important as much as it was in your head. You just go with it and then maybe present it next time or something. So yeah, just going with the flow and just taking it all in stride is the biggest piece of advice, the lesson I've learned the most from doing this.
I love that because as a first time D&D player, on stream, like I did the same mistake. This was also my first ever D&D game in our one shot for the channel, and we were like in this encounter that Cody, my co-host and DM, made for us, and we were kind of tricking this person. And after the encounter ended and like we were finishing battle and stuff like that, I was looking, like I had on my other monitor, I had my D&D Beyond character sheet, and I was like, oh dang, I had detect thoughts all this time and I didn't use it. And I was like, okay.
That happens to me all the time, especially when I'm running, I have like a horde of enemies and I'm like, okay, horde of enemies, we're good. And then, after the battle or after we've hit, stop on the record, I look back and I'm like, I can't believe I didn't use that spell or that ability that would have completely changed the battle, either for the worse or better or something. And so it just, you never know what's going to happen. Even as much as you try and plan everything out, there's still going to be curveballs or things you forget. And that's just the nature of playing a actual play live,
Okay. I love that. It's very it's very real, very, very raw.
Yeah. Very.
In terms of like kind of wrapping up the past in a way, like if we take all of the experience of Tales of Terramir, if you were now in this position of starting it all over, what are some kind of lessons or tips, or maybe even like if you were telling this to someone else who is starting a stream like you and your friends started back then, what would be kind of like maybe storytelling or DMing advice that you would give a beginner DM?
Yeah. So if you're, like building on some of what we had already talked about of just rolling with the punches, starting small and seeing where the story goes. Some people have, a bit of a campaign laid out. That's just a different style of doing things. You could do it that way. But yeah, other than that, I think making sure too that you have very good communication with your team and your players, and making sure everyone's on the same page. You have to have open communication between everyone. Make sure you're on. You have the same goals, and you want to accomplish those same goals. I would make sure that is. You have to have a solid foundation if you're to launch into streaming, because you want to make sure that, again, you are all on the same page and that everyone has the same goals, and you want to accomplish the same things. And to be frank, we've had a little hiccups here and there as it has happened throughout the show. And but we've rolled with it, as we always do. And I try and keep communication open. And there are things that I wish that we were more open about in the very beginning. At the very beginning of the show. And there have been ups and downs. You're playing every 2 weeks for 2 years. There are things that happen in our own personal lives outside of the game that happen. And but I think making sure you continue to communicate, and you make sure everyone's good and everyone is friends and that we're having fun still. That's the most important thing. And that is another lesson or piece of advice I would give. Make sure you communicate. Make sure you are talking to everyone involved in the crew, and making sure you have the same goals, and everyone is having a good time. That's the most important thing.
We have this one segment here on the podcast called Roll for Spoilers. And I'm not sure what kind of spoiler you can share, but that will be based on the dice. It could be if I roll low enough, it could be even a lie. I don't care. But yeah, is that something that you consent to?
Yes, that sounds fun. I love that you actually roll for it too. That's great.
Okay, so I'm going to do something different, because what I usually do, I just roll, and then I film it with my iPhone and show it to you. Instead, this time I'm going to do something different. I'm going to join with my iPad to the call.
I'd say if it's a low roll, probably not a good spoiler. If it's a high roll, then good spoiler.
So I'm just going to roll, and we'll see what happens. Okay, that is a 15.
A 15. Pretty good
Thank
roll.
you, Dice Tray. Not sponsored by Dimension 20, but you can find it on the Dropout store.
That's a great dice tray. I love that. And that die, too, is very cool. A 15. A spoiler. Obviously, skip ahead if you don't want to know. And my players, don't watch this part. But with a 15, this is something I think that's going to be revealed very, very soon anyway. And if you've been paying attention, the signs are there and the hints have been there. But the Pangean people are collecting psychic gems of each of the Gem Dragon colors. We know that we have one, the amethyst, and we're exploring an emerald cave looking for an emerald one. We know that some of our characters have gone off in their own direction with little hints there. But the spoiler is that they're collecting each of the psychic gems of each color, perhaps to bring something to fruition. Something might happen if they bring all those gems together. And are you going to stop them, or are you going to join them in collecting the gems? And so I think that's the spoiler right now, where the story might be going.
Okay, that's amazing. Okay,
yeah,
heard it here first, or not. I don't know.
Or not. Maybe you skipped it.
Amazing. Okay, so let's move on to the final question for you, Wes. This was an amazing interview, and we talked about.
Thank you.
Mainly, we talked about the past, and now I want to talk about the future. So tell me, what's in the future of Tales of Terramir?
The future right now is I would love for us to expand on our story and have more people join us on this journey. Currently, I'm working on a video, and I know, Oren, you said you don't like to skip ahead, but some people might. I'm making a video that our player Justin voiced that's going to contain everything in Arc 1. So if you're just getting into the show for the first time and you just want to skip ahead, figure out where we're at right now. It'll be episodes 1 through 40, and so you can just get closer to where we are at now, which is we're almost at episode 50. So, gosh, sorry, what was your question?
The question was about the future. The future of the show.
Future. So yeah, we are making that video that you can join us. But I'd like our story to hopefully conclude after 3 arcs. We've had 1, we're in arc 2, and then have another, and then conclude the campaign. And then we'll have 1 contained long campaign for anyone to enjoy, as well as written. All the episodes will be written out, so you have 1 long story there as well. And hopefully we can expand upon Terramir even more, because there's so much to explore in the world that we most definitely won't get to in our campaign. So maybe we'll do a campaign 2 and explore another aspect of the world. So that is my hopes for the future. I hope you'll join us.